Hello, everyone. Today we have Adhitya Raghavan with us. He's one of my good old friends from India. I met him first time when I started playing squash. We both used to play squash in the Indian circuit. I've seen personally, and I've also played personally Aditya, and he plays very well for sure. And then he later went on to play for the Indian team, and then eventually, then he got admission to one of the top schools in the U.S. and to play squash for them, which is Princeton University. And then at Princeton for 4 years, he was a student athlete, managing his studies while he was simultaneously playing squash. And also in between, he did some internships. So it was like a good balance where he did that for 4 years, and now he's in Boston and he's working his full-time job, and he also continues to play squash. And also in his time, whenever he gets, he thinks about how he can give back and make society a better place. So Aditya, welcome, and it's great to catch up with you again, man. And we can get started. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a really cool intro. I've not heard so many good things said about me in a long time. So thank you for that, and look forward to getting started and being here.
Yeah. So Aditya, one of the first things, like as we know, like you were in India and you were in the Indian school setting all your life before you came to US. So what we can sort of like deep dive into how you felt about the education system there, and how did you manage squash in India, and what kind of support like your school gave you in that process.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I went to a CBSE school, so a public CBSE school in Chennai, and we used to train twice a day. And I was very lucky to have very good mentors and support from the school from a very young age. So when training twice a day, my school principal was accommodative to let me come a little bit later to school and let me leave a little bit early to go back to training. And also when we went to play tournaments, they would give us on duty. So it wouldn't count as a leave of absence. And my teachers were also very helpful whenever I got back and I had a lot of questions because I had no idea what was going on. They would support me there. The other part of my support system were my friends who really helped out with the problem sets, assignments we had, and also preparing for just learning material in general.
Yeah. How important do you think, like, was it for you to be good at academics, for your school to be able to support you while you were doing your tournaments, or irrespective, you think in that kind of a system they would respect you just playing good sports and then coming back and supporting?
Yeah, for me personally, academics was as important as sports. And I know other athletes who over-index on the sports part. There were some really cool karate uh, sportsmen in my school, and they were supported well, some chess players as well.
Yeah.
But for me and my parents, like I tried to balance both side by side, and I made sure that I did well. I learned the material,
Yeah.
and on a more fundamental level, I think like the Indian schooling system, especially high school for STEM and engineering, is one of the best in the world. Like
Yeah.
you get very deep into the material and you learn good material. So I balance both.
Yeah,
What
personally,
about you?
I was also in the STEM field only, like in high school. And one thing I realized, as you also said, right, the material, especially in higher classes, it's quite challenging. It's actually tough. And if you do it properly, then it helps you in college and everything, since they raise the bar so much. So how did you think, like, were you able to balance that when you also, like traveling? So, yeah.
Yes, I definitely was. And this can be a little bit of a hot take, but I felt like playing squash helped me do well in academics. But after a point, whenever I didn't play for an extended period of time because of injury or something, I actually saw that other areas of my life also suffered.
Yeah.
And for me, it was a healthy way to balance both. Like squash helped me take my mind out of academics. Academics helped me take my mind out of squash.
Yeah.
It did come with a few things that we had to learn, like time management and all the usual things. Like
Hmm.
very tactically, I did study on the flight or the train traveling to tournaments or even before matches. But I think that's part of trying to balance both equally.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like I also agree, time management becomes the key because when you're traveling, right, it gets hard. You have limited time and you like things keep piling on. So yeah, also one important thing, like as we play tournament or we used to play tournament in the junior days, that gave us like an opportunity to also travel around, not just in India, like see different parts, like cities in India and also around the world too. How do you think that played like an important role in shaping up your thinking when you were in school days, or what kind of exposure did that give you?
Yeah, 100%. It was a privilege to be able to travel around the world playing tournaments. For me, the biggest takeaway was seeing people who are very different uh, and seeing how they behave, how their culture is, and giving me almost like a exposure to different kinds of culture helped me like broaden my perspective in terms of accepting different things and
Mhm.
being tolerant towards different things and understanding that our culture is actually a small part of world culture and not all encompassing in a way.
Yeah, the broadening of the mind becomes so crucial because if we are not going out, then sort of like we're in that zone where we're just thinking on, or we could just relate to what we only see, right? Like
Yeah,
when we open the horizon, then so many new things like we're able to learn easily.
100%. And for me, it really drilled down the point that I'm a very small part of this larger ecosystem. And
Yeah,
yeah.
that's an important point. Yeah. Um, so after your schooling in India, then your transition in the US, how how did that exactly happen? Like, I know squash played a role, but how, if you can, like briefly walk us through that transition?
Yeah, so my background originally is we're from a small village in the south of India. Although I grew up in Chennai, and I had no plans of going to the US
Okay.
until 11th grade, where Anaka Lankamani, she was a player, squash player from Chennai who went to UPenn.
Mm.
And in India, you have this choice between going to a good academic institution or choosing to play squash full time. And I didn't want to choose between both. And Anaka actually helped guide me and a lot of other Chennai-based squash players to go to the US and pursue our academics there. So that's how it started.
Okay.
And then I talked to the coaches, and I really enjoyed, like, due to a variety of factors, I chose Princeton.
And when you came in, it's completely like a new environment. I'm sure like you traveling when you were in India like must have helped you because in those early days only you started to shape your thinking, in more like a broad perspective. So that would definitely would have helped. But when you came in knowing that you'll be here for a longer time and shorter time at home, like, and it's like such a environment change, right? So what were some things that you did to adapt to like a new place, or what are some things that you usually do?
Yeah. So when I came to the US as a freshman, and freshman for Indian students is first year student, was the first time I came to the US ever. And for me, too, I definitely felt lonely the first few months. And people are friendly here, but being away from home, being away from India was difficult. I think one thing I am very happy that I did was ask for help, and it can be in an academic setting where I really ask for help from my friends, from my professors. And a lot of people who come to these top schools, they're afraid to do that because they've been like the best student in their school. So they're not used to like asking for help. Whereas I was not, I was a good student, not the best. And I was comfortable asking and admitting that I don't know. And also finding help in the squash team. There were a few seniors from India, Abhimanyu Shah, who showed me the way of how does the system work, how is the culture.
Mm.
Very simple things like the food was a big adjustment for me, and also I think in general in India, there's a certain level of, once you're friends, you can make any kind of joke, but there's a level of political correctness that's required in the US. So all of these small things, like it took me time to figure out, but I think asking for help was the biggest thing. Would love to hear your journey from India too. So answering the last two questions for yourself.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think the biggest thing, because mine was also quite similar, right? The recruitment happened, and then I came to Trinity, and as we were playing squash.
But was that the plan always?
That was not the plan always, no, for sure. Like I was also looking at schools and like around the Delhi area in India also. But then, like at that point, like people our age, like including you and all my other friends, like a lot of people were actually coming to US to play squash and pursue education. So I thought, this can be a good option also if good education can also while like allow me to also play squash. Like basically other way that if squash can allow me to also get a good education
Yeah.
outside. And one thing I felt strongly was because as we were interested, right, or at least I was interested in squash, I didn't really see a lot of schools back in India who were doing like college squash. There
Mhm.
are there are colleges who does that, like not denying that, but not so actively how it is
Right.
in US for sure. So that was a that was I think important. And then just like the squash circuit in India was like everyone knows everyone, like and everyone is willing to help, like go out of their way to support. So in my
100%.
case, one of the guys like Rishabh Kotian, like he was the first one who I spoke to about Trinity. So he was there, so he guided me, and just that help is so important. So I think the point that you also made, right, asking for help, that's so important because I see, including myself, like I was in a state in my at least when I was in high school that I would hesitate asking questions or asking, for help because there's such a notion that if you don't know something, then that's just not right. Like you need to
Right.
figure something out. So and once you overcome it, then you yourself become, like people are willing to help you. They're more accepting for the fact that you're aware that what you don't know, which is so important. So I think that was and that's what I was like going to ask you, like how did you develop that, like the asking for help just through conscious practice you asked and then you overcome uh what people will think about you, or how did you do that?
I would say from a young age, I've actually never had a problem with it just because I've been very curious. And even now, I'm very curious about everything just to learn.
Yeah.
And I also think like squash played a big part for me to overcome it, where we learn to lose a
Yeah.
lot in squash. And in sports in general, you don't win all the time. You lose most of the time, actually.
Yeah.
So failing for me has become like a part of life. And you do get no's sometimes. People are not always willing to help. But I would say that at least in college, 90% of the time, people are always ready to help in whatever it is. And for me, that was very useful. Just asking when I don't know, and also being willing to help. I think it goes both ways. Whenever you can.
Yeah, I think whoever is listening and any aspirant, like who's trying to get into a school or something, they should definitely ask more questions. I think asking question is not a bad thing. People who, in a way also want to give back, they're always like happy to answer those kind of questions because what they have learned, they want to share that. So definitely. Um, and then at college, like both of us played sports also, so we were called student athletes here on campus, balancing both studies and sport. So according to you, how was that experience for 4 years? Like, did you enjoy it, and what were some things you learned?
Yeah, I loved Princeton. My Princeton experience definitely changed my life in many ways, opened many doors. But most importantly, it changed the way I think about things, think about the world. And I would say Princeton is, I studied mechanical and aerospace engineering, and it's a little bit of a theoretical school where we focus a lot on just the thinking aspects of rather than applying it in the real world. And it really teaches you how to think and how to tackle a problem, like any problem. So it's a useful skill set that I learned. If I had to say one thing that Princeton taught me, was to think big and to try to make an impact in the world, some sort of positive impact. Just because of the people I met, my professors were Nobel Prize winners, and we would get coffee. And my students, there were like people who were like Forbes 30 under 30.
Yeah.
And you see that they're just normal people. You hang out with them, you go out with them. So it really like opens up the horizon that, it is possible. So that I would say that's what Princeton taught me.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, hanging out with cool professors and actually be able to learn from them, I think that's very nice. Yeah, 100%.
What about you? What was your Trinity experience like? I know it's a small school. Also, I know squash is huge at Trinity, so you must have been like a star just by being
No,
a squash
no.
player.
I mean, I know Trinity squash like the um, has been very good throughout the years, and all credits to our coach Paul Asiante. Like he has worked so hard over the years to get a good team every year. So definitely the squash program is one of the highlights in the school. I think the biggest learning factor for me at school was firstly like I learned so much from coach and also like from my teammates and also just around, since you mentioned, right, it's such a smaller school. So if you actually have an open mind, it gets so much easier to get to become close to people and also get to learn from them. So just I think the very cool thing, at least that I experienced for the first time in my life, was when I came to Trinity squash team. And then when we used to go to dinners or we used to have team meetings, you would just be sitting there and you'll have about 15 to 16 players next to you and all from different countries, like
Yeah,
so many kids from every corner of the world. So I think that was for me very cool. You would hear 15, 16 different accents on the dining table. uh, just the way they think, since we all grew up in such different environments,
yeah,
for the same problem, we would just think so differently. So I think that was very amazing just to see on a very repetitive basis through the 4 years. And I think just the way like our coach got everyone together, and he just instilled this thing in us, like like it's not just about you, about it's always a team. So I think that thing was so important, not just for us at the on the squash court, but he used to sort of like in a way train us for like life through
hmm,
squash stuff,
awesome.
through the way he would talk to us. So I think that was very good. And yeah, those 4 years, like I would not change those 4 years for anything like ever, because even for
Yeah,
me, like they made such a big impact. And I was very fortunate to have good people around me and coach also. So yeah.
right. That's awesome.
Yeah. And then so now it's been like a year or two since since we're out of school, and now we're out in the open. And you mentioned like something that like Princeton instilled in you, do something that you can like sort of also make an impact on the society. we
Yeah,
also we also come in that restless phase where even when we are working, like we still are trying to like see how we can do more stuff or add more value. And something similar has happened with you, where like with your job you've also started your non-profit initiative, which I would and all of us would love to know more about. And why did you start that?
yeah. I can give a very short intro about what it is. So, Cantalk Education helps provide students, aspiring students who are looking at colleges, undergrad and both masters, and giving them personalized mentorship by matching them one-on-one with a mentor who shares a common background or a common interest. So let's say someone wants to play squash, then it would be someone like me or you. Someone from India, then it would be someone from the same city in India, so that they can relate to each other. And I think right now there's a big gap over there where the mentorship is outdated, or it's just one person who's doing everything, and it's not possible for me to know about dance or
Mhm.
arts. Like I have a very small and narrow skill set, and I can only help in that area. So creating this large network of mentors is the goal, and helping students. The reason why it started was, like I said, Princeton opened many doors, right? And I received a lot of help. And for me, I would love to give the same opportunities to other people. Like I have a lot of friends in India who did not necessarily get the same opportunities,
Mhm.
and it's almost like I have one leg on each side. So I've seen what it is like in India, going to a normal school, and also what it is like to go to Princeton, get the resources, get funding to do whatever you want.
Mhm.
So I think bridging that gap is what I'd love to do, and that's how we started it.
I think that's a very good idea. And I think that's something that, you can actually be able to do or perform at when you experience both sides of it, which you mentioned, like when you were in Indian schooling system, you saw some of the things, and only until, when you were done with Princeton, then you realize what the gap was and how, like there's so many talented people too who sometimes are not able to capitalize on their talent just because of so many various reasons, right? So I think it's very nice how you are doing and bridging this gap in a very, and it's, if I'm understood correctly, it's in a non-profit way, right? Like you are
Yes.
genuinely trying to help people without
Yes.
the intention of uh
Yeah.
yeah.
And the gap is very simple. It's a lack of information or misinformation that
Yeah.
we just want to solve. And like you said, in India, even in my class, there were people way more smarter than me. Like I said, I was not the smartest student, very average student.
Yeah.
But because of good guidance and support, I was able to make it here. So hopefully other people can too.
Yeah, something curious about like why, so you were in US, you are done with your school, you have a good job. Why did you think, or what was inside you that drove you to creating this nonprofit? Like what was
Yeah,
something? Yeah.
yeah, 100%. And I would say that Princeton played a big role there. And it's more, our school motto is in the service of humanity or service of the world or something like that.
Okay.
And they really embody it in how much resources they provide for us. And for me, seeing both sides really like drove this initiative to like take some sort of action. I know this won't play like a life-changing role, but even if we can play
Yeah, yeah,
an important role in one student's life, I
yeah.
think it would be a success. So just positively impacting people around. And this is not just Indian students, we're doing it for US students as well.
Okay.
Just positively impacting people around me. It's on a personal level, it gives a lot of gratification. So yeah.
Yeah, and also since you're so far away from India and you're in a way also trying to help people who are back in India too, and of course like everyone who's around, globally. So in today's time, do you also strongly feel that no matter where you are, if you want to give back or make an impact, whether it be your country or somewhere else around the world, it's still possible?
100%. I this is something I've learned in the last 1 year since I've been working,
Yeah.
and just looking at some of my coworkers. One of them started a fashion blog and it's doing great.
Yeah.
I think in today's world, the only thing you have to do is take initiative, and you can make really, really good progress. And it can start off very, very small.
Yeah.
Like this initiative started off with an Instagram post asking people if this would even be useful.
Yeah.
And then over time, I iterated, learned a lot of lessons, made mistakes, and then slowly now we've helped like 20 students. So it's slowly but steadily growing, and I've seen a lot of people do that. So it's definitely possible.
Yeah, personally, I also feel like, like if all of us in our capacity, it doesn't have to be like a full-time thing straight away. Even in our capacity with whatever time we have, if we can do something little,
Yeah,
which can make a positive contribution.
100%. And I would actually, your blog is a prime example where it started from zero, right? Like,
Yeah.
And now you have 10 episodes, almost 10 episodes,
Yeah.
and a lot of people viewing it. And we connected through me viewing your previous blog posts. So I think it's a prime example of how much of a positive impact you can have by starting very small.
Yeah, something similar on the lines where you know how you spoke about your initiative. And I also strongly feel wherever we are in our capacity, we don't really need to waste time. Like we can start today, something
Yeah.
small we can start, and we can, you know, like we can I don't know, it depends on how you think. You know, if you want to if you want to get a big change, then you go that way. But even like very small steps, you can, the technology has definitely enabled all of us to do
Yeah.
various innovative things now.
100%.
Yeah, so I think Aditya, that was all the topics that I wanted to cover with you today. It's very good to know your journey, like from India and how you came here, your background, and some of your thought processes. What would you say like was your biggest learning so far since coming to US? Like that one last thing.
Biggest learning so far since coming to the US.
Would be one of the biggest too. Yeah.
I would say the same thing that I learned in Princeton, that anything is possible. And it's important to dream big.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that's the biggest learning I've had so far.
Yes, man. That's a very important
But
thing.
I do have a question for you. I'd love to hear more about your grandfather started this whole big initiative, but how did you start this blog post channel, and how do you see it progressing moving forward?
Yeah, so similar. So my grandfather, like he started REACHA, which is the non-profit, which where I'm also actively volunteering, and that's why this platform or the initiative is called REACHA Dialogues. So I saw my granddad do that. He was in the government, like in the IS, like Indian Administrative Services, and when he was there, like he also realized there were some gaps between what the government meant to do for the common people and what the common people actually were receiving, and that's why to bridge that gap REACHA was formed, and REACHA did a lot of like activities in different areas like education, health, sanitation. Then I saw my dad take over it, and he's been actively doing it for many years. So just seeing both of them, sort of, you know, instilled in me to at least give a try and see, you know, what all this is about, because they have dedicated their lives to this. So, and if they have like there has to be something behind it. So I just wanted to give it a try. And as you also mentioned, I started from scratch, zero, no intentions, nothing else, just, you know, very pure, just to get people who think on similar lines, who have a mind alignment, who are also trying to, you know, contribute to society in a positive manner. And if I can get them, and you know, get them to share their journeys and why they think that, the more I feel the people listen, that people are trying to create a positive contribution in their personal or professional capacity, I think the more they would sort of also, they might, you know, like they might try to do that in their own lives too. And that's the entire goal. Like if just imagine if all of us, everyone, like can do something very small too. And I'm not saying to leave your full-time job or to stop living the way you live, but even if we can generate consciousness at a certain level about things around us collectively, I think that can definitely like help solving a lot of things. So I think that's my intent, and I'm very slowly doing it, you know, like.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's how I came across you. I saw one of your talks too about, you know, like where you were talking to someone and their experiences at one of the schools, and just, you know, that's how you see there's mind alignment. You're trying to do something different. I was like, I need to get you. So I'm glad we could do this, and this is a good
Yeah,
session. Yeah.
super cool.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for taking the time, and thanks for
Yeah.
having me.
Yeah. No, thank you so much, man. And you take care. I'll hopefully see you soon.
Cool.
Thank you.